Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, a leading Jeremy Corbyn supporter has provoked furious accusations of anti-Semitism over remarks she made at an anti-Semitism training event. Jackie Walker, who's vice chair of the left-wing Momentum group, was heckled at a meeting on Monday after she apparently criticised Holocaust Memorial Day for not including non-Jewish genocide victims. Jackie Walker was secretly recorded making the remarks at the Labour Party conference this week.
I was seeking for information, and I still haven't heard a definition of anti-Semitism that I can work with. And in terms of Holocaust Day, I would also like to say, wouldn't it be wonderful if Holocaust Day was open to all people who've experienced Holocaust? And if the Jews...
It is. It's for all genocides.
And it's not the first time she's been accused of anti-Semitism. Back in May, she was suspended from the Labour Party after posting during a Facebook discussion that Jews were chief financiers of the sugar and slave trade. It's also emerged, she said, proportionately more gypsies were killed by the Nazis. She was readmitted to the party after an investigation, but Jewish groups are now demanding she be sacked as vice chair of Momentum. Well, earlier I spoke to Jackie Walker and I began by asking her what she meant when she said she hadn't found a definition of anti-Semitism that she could work with.
Well, actually, it wasn't the first time the trainer had been asked that question. A number of other people had asked, what is the definition of anti-Semitism? So I just followed up that question because I was looking for what was the definition of anti-Semitism that we could actually use so that we could... What is my definition? I would say racism against Jews or hatred against Jewish people. But I think, I'm not even sure if that's adequate.
But why are you asking that question? I mean, surely it's pretty obvious what anti-Semitism is. Why did you feel the need to challenge what the definition was?
I wasn't challenging it. I was remember, this was a training event, and I don't know if you've ever been to training events about racism, but they will all be working towards a particular definition of the racism that they're talking about. So I was asking, you know, what definition there was. There are, for example, some definitions of anti-Semitism that talk about anything that challenges Zionism as being anti-Semitic. So I wanted to be clear about what we were talking about.
So in your view, anti-Zionism is okay, but anti-Semitism isn't, is that right?
I think Zionism is a political ideology. And like any political ideology, some people will be supportive of it and some people won't be supportive of it. I think that's a very different thing.
But you would happily describe yourself as an anti-Zionist, if not an anti-Semite?
Yeah. Well, I certainly wouldn't call myself an anti-Semite, as I am Jewish and my partner is Jewish.
I mean, a lot of Jewish people might have a problem even with anti-Zionism, but let me just move on to something else you said, and I'll quote you again. In terms of Holocaust Day, wouldn't it be wonderful if Holocaust Day was open to all people who experienced Holocaust? I mean, that's not just offensive, but it's also plain wrong, isn't it?
Well, it depends, doesn't it? Because as far as I know, the Holocaust Memorial Day celebrates genocides that happened post the Nazis, doesn't it?
Well, it commemorates all sorts of genocides.
No, I think if you look on their website, it says they commemorate, you know, all sorts of genocides like Rwanda and Cambodia, but they're all genocides that happened post the Nazis.
So when you put out your statement saying you were sorry if you caused offence, you actually thought what you were saying was factually correct?
Why would I want to hurt people's feelings? Of course, I'm sorry if any offence was given. But I actually do think that whoever leaked this story in the way they did from a training event had malicious intent in their mind.
Well, you see, a lot of Jewish people are deeply offended by the suggestion, the question that you placed over Holocaust Day, because they see the Holocaust as such a distinct tragedy that it deserves a day to commemorate it. Do you disagree with that?
Of course. Of course. You know, the Jewish Holocaust was an awful, extraordinary event. And Jews should have a day when they celebrate that. But there is also a confusion, isn't there? Because if, you know, as a person of mixed heritage, both African and Jewish, I felt, why is that cut-off point in the 1940s? So if you've gone through the Cambodian genocide, that is commemorated. But if you've gone through the African Holocaust, that's not.
But in the past, you've also written on Facebook that the Holocaust, quote, is not the preserve of Jews, and, quote, proportionately more gypsies were killed by the Nazis as a total of population. Do you stand by those comments?
Look, I don't stand by those comments in the way that you have actually said them in that way. I think what I know, as what everybody knows, is that the proportion of Romani people who died in the Holocaust was awful, and the number of other peoples who died in that Holocaust was also terrible, and they should also be commemorated.
The problem is that you've said all these things in the past. You've also said that the Jews were the chief financiers of the sugar and slave trade. You've also said that the Jewish Holocaust doesn't allow Zionists to do what they want. Let me just finish the question. You've said all these things, and the cumulative effect of this is that people then, particularly Jewish people, think that you are hostile to them, prejudiced against them.
What I said, and I was talking about my family at a particular point of time in the Caribbean, in a particular place. Many Jews, I said, at that particular point in time.
A lot of prominent Jewish groups, anti-Semitism groups, feel very offended by what you've said and said that it proves that Labour's not safe for Jews and that you should resign. Have you considered resigning?
And what I would put to you is some other prominent Jewish groups, of which I'm a member of, think a very different thing. And I think what we have to look at times when we're talking about this subject, particularly at the moment, is the political differences that are underlying this as well.
Jackie Walker, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And in the last hour, Channel 4 News has learned that members of Momentum's steering committee are seeking to remove Jackie Walker as vice chair of the organisation will be meeting on Monday. And the General Secretary of the TSSA union, Manuel Cortes, has tonight called on her to resign from the Labour Party.